They call themselves the Confederation of Planets in the service of the infinite Creator. This is a simplification in order to ease the difficulty of understanding among our people. They hesitate to use the term sound vibration, understanding, but it is closest to their meaning. There are approximately 53 civilizations, comprising approximately 500 planetary consciousness complexes in this confederation. This confederation contains those from our own planet who have attained dimensions beyond our third. It contains planetary entities within our solar system, and it contains planetary entities from other galaxies. It is a true confederation in that its members are not alike, but allied in service according to the law of one. This confederation works with the planetary spheres of 7 star systems and is responsible for the callings of the densities of these star systems. In our Milky Way galaxy, approximately 32% of stars have planets as we know them, while another 6% have some sort of clustering material, which upon some densities might be inhabitable. Approximately 1/5 of all planetary entities contain awareness of one or more densities. Of those are a percentage 17 for first density, a percentage 20 for second density, a percentage 27 for third density, a percentage 16 for fourth density, a percentage 6 for fifth density. There is a fairly large percentage, approximately 35% of the intelligent planets, which do not fit in the percentiles. These mysteries are of 6th and 7th density and are not available for our speaking. With such a large number of planets in this galaxy, there are many confederations. All serve the one Creator. There is nothing else to serve, for the Creator is all that there is. It is impossible not to serve the Creator. There are simply various distortions of this service. As in the Confederation which works with our peoples, each confederation is a group of specialized individual social memory complexes, each doing that which it expresses to bring into manifestation. The desire to serve begins in the dimension of love or understanding, to be an overwhelming goal of the social memory complex. Thus, those percentiles of planetary entities, plus approximately 4% more of whose identity we cannot speak, found themselves long ago in our time, seeking the same thing, service to others. The relationship between these entities, as they entered an understanding of other beings, other planetary entities, and other concepts of service, was to share and continue together these commonly held goals of service. Thus, each voluntarily placed the social memory complex data in what we may consider a central thought complex, available to all. This then created a structure whereby each entity could work in its own service, while calling upon any other understandings needed to enhance the service. This is the cause of the formation and the manner of the working of the Confederation. The general cause of service, such as the Confederation offers, is that of the primal distortion of the law of one, which is service. The one being of the creation is like unto a body, if you will accept this third density analogy. Would they ignore a pain in the leg? A bruise upon the skin? A cut which is festering? No, there is no ignoring a call. They, the entities of sorrow, choose as their service the attempt to heal the sorrow, which they are calling analogous to the pains of a physical body complex distortion. The call begins with one. This call is equal to infinity and is not, as we would say, counted. It is the cornerstone. The second call is added. The third call empowers or doubles the second, and so forth, each additional caller doubling or granting power to all the preceding call. Thus, the call of many peoples is many powered and overwhelmingly heard to the infinite reaches of the one creation. The service available for their offering to those who call them is equivalent to the doubling of the distortion need of that calling, divided by or integrated with the basic law of one in its distortion, indicating the free will of those who are not aware of the unity of creation. They must integrate all of the portions of our social memory complex in its illusory disintegration form. Then the product of this can be seen as the limit of their ability to serve. They are fortunate that the law of service squares, or as we prefer to call doubles, the desires of those who call. Otherwise, they would have no beingness in this time-space, at this present continuum of the illusion. They do not calculate the possibility of coming among our peoples by the numbers of calling, but by a consensus among an entire societal memory complex, which has become aware of the infinite consciousness of all things. This has been possible among our peoples only in isolated instances. In the case wherein a social memory complex, which is servant of the Creator, sees this situation and has an idea for the appropriate aid, which can only be done among our peoples, the social memory complex desiring this project lays it before the Council of Saturn, which guards this planet. If it is approved, quarantine is lifted. This council is located in the octave or eighth dimension of the planet Saturn, taking its place in an area, which we understand in third-dimensional terms as the rings. The members of the council are representatives from the Confederation and from those vibratory levels of our inner planes, bearing responsibility for our third density. In number, the council that sits in constant session, though varying in its members by means of balancing, which takes place, what we would call irregularly, is 9. That is the session council. To back up this council, there are 24 entities, which offer their services as requested. These entities faithfully watch and have been called the guardians. The council operates by means of what we would call telepathic contact with the oneness or unity of the 9, the distortions blending harmoniously so that the law of one prevails with ease. When a need for thought is present, the council retains the distortion complex of this need, balancing it as described, and then recommends what it considers as appropriate action. This includes 1. The duty of admitting social memory complexes to the Confederation. 2. Offering aid to those who are unsure how to aid the social memory complex requesting aid, in a way consonant with both the call, the law, and the number of those calling. 3. Internal questions in the council are determined. These are the prominent duties of the council. They are, if in any doubt, able to contact the 24, who then offer consensus judgment thinking to the council. The council then may reconsider any question. Like the Confederation, the densities of the mass consciousnesses which comprise Orion group are varied. There are very few third density, a larger number of fourth density, a similarly large number of fifth density, and very few sixth density entities comprising this organization. Those of Southern Cross are members of the Orion group. It is not, shall we say, according to understood wording that a group from various star systems should be named by one. However, those planetary social memory complexes of the so-called Orion constellation have the upper hand and thus rule the other members. You must recall that in negative thinking, there is always the pecking order, shall we say, and the power against power in separation. The progress through densities is sequential. A negative fifth density social memory complex would be comprised of mind-body-spirit complexes harvested from fourth density. Then the conglomerate or mass mind-body-spirit complex does its melding, and the results are due to the infinitely various possibilities of combination of distortions. Their numbers are perhaps 1/10 of the Confederation at any point in the space-time continuum, as the problem of spiritual entropy causes them to experience constant disintegration of their social memory complexes. Their power is the same as the Confederations. The law of one blinks, neither at the light or the darkness, but is available for service to others and service to self. However, service to others results in service to self, thus preserving and further harmonizing the distortions of those entities seeking intelligent infinity through these disciplines. Those seeking intelligent infinity through the use of service to self, create the same amount of power, but as we said, have constant difficulty because of the concept of separation, which is implicit in the manifestations of the service to self, which involve power over others. This weakens and eventually disintegrates the energy collected by such mind-body-spirit complexes, who call the Orion group and the social memory complexes, which comprise the Orion group. It should be noted, carefully pondered and accepted, that the law of one is available to any social memory complex, which has decided to strive together for any seeking of purpose, be it service to others or service to self. The laws, which are the primal distortions of the law of one, are then placed into operation, and the illusion of space-time is used as a medium for the development of the results of those choices freely made. Thus all entities learn, no matter what they seek. All learn the same, some rapidly, some slowly. The beings are harvested because they can see and enjoy the light love of the appropriate density. Those who have found this light love light without benefit of a desire for service, nevertheless, by the law of free will, have the right to the use of that light love for whatever purpose. Also, it may be inserted that there are systems of study which enable the seeker of separation to gain these gateways. This study is as difficult as the one which Ra has described to us, but there are those with the perseverance to pursue the study. The distortion lies in the fact that those who seek to serve the self are seen by the law of one as precisely the same as those who seek to serve others, for are all, not one? To serve yourself and to serve others is a dual method of saying the same thing, if you can understand the essence of the law of one. This group's shipping clerks have the work of disseminating material of thought control to those who are what we may call crusaders. The crusaders move in their chariots to conquer planetary mind-body-spirit social complexes before they reach the stage of achieving social memory. Their objective is to locate certain mind-body-spirit complexes which vibrate in resonance with their own vibrational complex, then to enslave the unelite, as we may call those who are not of the Orion vibration. As all, they follow the law of one, observing free will. Contact is made with those who call. Then, those upon the planetary sphere act to disseminate the attitudes and philosophy of their particular understanding of the law of one, which is service to self. These become the elite. Through these, the attempt begins to create a condition whereby the remainder of the planetary entities are enslaved by their own free will. To serve the self is to serve all. The service of the self, when seen in this perspective, requires an ever-expanding use of the energies of others for manipulation to the benefit of the self, with distortion towards power. The term chariot is a term used in warfare among our peoples. That is its significance. The shape of the Orion craft is one of the following. Firstly, the elongated, ovoid shape, which is of a darker nature than silver, but which has a metallic appearance if seen in the light. In the absence of light, it appears to be red or fiery in some manner. Other craft include disc-shaped objects of a small nature, approximately 12 feet in our measurement in diameter. The box-like shape approximately 40 feet to a side in our measurement. Other craft can take on a desired shape through the use of thought control mechanisms. There are various civilization complexes which work within this group. Some are more able to use intelligent infinity than others. The information is very seldom shared. Therefore, the chariots vary greatly in shape and appearance. The majority of crusaders are of fourth density. Their purpose is conquest, unlike those of the Confederation who wait for the calling. The so-called Orion group calls itself to conquest. The attempts of the so-called crusaders to interfere with free will are acceptable upon the dimension of their understanding. However, the mind-body-spirit complexes of this dimension, we call third, form a dimension of free will, which is not able to, shall we say, recognize in full the distortions towards manipulation. The balancing is from dimension to dimension. Thus, in order to balance the dimensional variances in vibration, a quarantine was set up. Every effort is made to quarantine this planet. The Guardians guard the free will distortion of the mind-body-spirit complexes of third density on this planetary sphere. The events which require activation of quarantine were interfering with the free will distortion of mind-body-spirit complexes. These guardians sweep reaches of our Earth's energy fields, attempting to be aware of any entities approaching. An entity which is approaching is hailed in the name of the one creator. There is contact at the level of light form or light body being, depending upon the vibratory level of the guardian. Any entity thus hailed is bathed in love light and will of free will obey the quarantine due to the power of the law of one. The creator is one being. The vibratory level of those able to reach the quarantine boundaries is such that, upon seeing the love light net, it is impossible to break this law. Therefore, nothing happens. No attempt is made. There is no confrontation. To not obey quarantine, after being hailed, on the level of which we speak would be equivalent to our not stopping upon walking into a solid brick wall. However, the network of guardians, much like any other pattern of patrols, on whatever level, does not hinder each and every entity from penetrating quarantine, for if the request is made in light love, the law of one will be met with acquiescence. If the request is not made, the only beings who are able to penetrate the quarantine are those who discover windows or distortions in the space-time continua surrounding our planet's energy fields. Through these windows they come. These windows are rare and unpredictable. The closest analogy of its working would be a random number generator within certain limits. The window phenomenon operates from the dimensions beyond space-time in what we may call the area of intelligent energy. Like our cycles, such balancing, such rhythms are as a clock striking. In the case of the windows, no entities have the clock. Therefore, it seems random. It is not random in the dimension which produces this balance. Thus, this being a balancing situation, whereby the free will of the Orion group is not stopped, but given a challenge. Meanwhile, the third density group is not hindered from free choice. In effect, the balancing allows an equal amount of positive and negative influx, this balanced by the mind-body-spirit distortions of the social complex. Thus, in our particular planetary sphere, less negative, as we would call it, information or stimulus is necessary than positive, due to the somewhat negative orientation of our social complex distortion. For many of our centuries, both the Confederation and the Orion Confederation busied themselves with each other, upon planes above our own, shall we say, planes in time-space, whereby machinations were conceived and the armor of light girded on. Battles have been, and are continuing to be fought, upon these levels. Picture, if you will, your mind. Picture it, then in total unity with all other minds of your society. You are then single-minded, and that which is a weak electrical charge in our physical illusion is now an enormously powerful machine, whereby thoughts may be projected as things. In this endeavor, the Orion group charges or attacks the Confederation arms with light. At the level of time-space, at which this takes place in the form of what we may call thought war, the most accepting and loving energy would be to so love those who wished to manipulate that those entities were surrounded, engulfed, and transformed by positive energies. This, however, being a battle of equals, the Confederation is aware that it cannot, on equal footing, allow itself to be manipulated, in order to remain purely positive, for then, though pure, it would not be of any consequence, having been placed by the so-called powers of darkness under the heel, as we may say. It is thus that those who deal with this thought war must be defensive rather than accepting, in order to preserve their usefulness in service to others. Thusly, they cannot accept fully what the Orion Confederation wishes to give, that being enslavement. The result, a standoff, as we would call it, both energies being somewhat depleted by this. The negative depleted through failure to manipulate, the positive depleted through failure to accept that which is given. Thusly, some polarity is lost. Due to this friction in both sides, if you will, must then regroup. This is the most difficult work of the Confederation. At any one time, only 4 planetary entities of the density of love are asked to partake in this conflict. The 4th density is the only density besides our own which, lacking the wisdom to refrain from battle, sees the necessity of the battle. Thus, it is necessary that 4th density social memory complexes be used. 5th and 6th density entities would not take part in this battle. It has not been fruitful for either side. The only consequence which has been helpful is a balancing of the energies available to this planet, so that these energies have less necessity to be balanced in this space-time, thus lessening the chances of planetary annihilation.